Back. Yeah.
Hey, Terry.
All right. Well, I believe it's about 2 o'clock, and it looks like everyone who's attending is here. So we get started.
Okay. As you're fully aware, and those watching perhaps online, I'm Dr. Brent Wallace, Chair, and I would like to call the Community and Technical College Formula Advisory Committee meeting to order. Be advised that today's meeting is being broadcast publicly and recorded. So before we begin, I'd like to ask participants to do a few things. Each time you speak, if you'd be sure to state your name. While not speaking, if you'd mute your device, that would be handy, and then keep background noise as much to a minimum as we can. So appreciate that. I'm going to call on Ms. Burke for item 2 to call the roll to verify quorum.
Thank you. Mr. Texas Buckholz. Mr. Richard Cervantes.
Present.
Ms. Terry Crawford.
Present.
Ms. Mary Elizondo. Present. Mr. Raul Garcia. Do not see him present. There he is. Mr. Raul Garcia, present. Mr. Jonathan Hoekstra. I believe he's going to be late. Mr. Patrick Lee.
Present.
Dr. Cesar Maldonado. Dr. Rodriguez, I believe he's also going to miss the meeting today. Ms. Wicklund, Ms. Mary Wicklund.
Present.
And Mr. Jim Yiannopoulos.
Present.
A quorum is present.
Great. Thank you for joining us. I was getting a little nervous there for quorum. So good to see everyone here. We appreciate it. Item 3 is the consideration of approval of minutes from the first meeting held on August 24th, 2021. A draft was included in your agenda materials. Do you have any members have any comments, questions, or corrections for those draft minutes? So hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
This is Jim Yiannopoulos. I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a first from Jim. Do I have a second?
This is Richard Cervantes. I second.
Richard is second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Your hand.
Aye.
And what's easier on Zoom is anyone that is against, if you'll let us know. Great, motion carries. Thank you so much. Our next agenda item is a discussion of the commissioner's charges to the committee. Again, we've previewed these before, but I want to go through these one at a time and look again at what we're looking at here. Charge 1 is the study and to make recommendation for the appropriate funding levels for the contact hour core and student success funding. So Mr. Cervantes is heading that work group. Richard, if you have any kind of updates for us or any questions or anything you're looking for, if you want to give us a little brief overview of where your work group is.
Thanks, sir. The committee did meet on September 14th, and all the members were present, as well as a couple staff from THECB. We went over the task and really did not, obviously at this point, make any recommendations. We asked for a little bit more information that would be forthcoming before our next meeting of the work group. We received some draft information that came from Miss Burks. Really good information that is kind of leading us down a path. Same sort of information that we've received before. Obviously, the group can go through it and has gone through it to make any additional recommendations or changes. As in general, we tried to look at what the previous group had done to see, and then also to look at what the LBB had approved. We didn't go into great discussion about the three areas, but we did go through each one of them. And at the end, we said, well, we're going to meet again and we'll get back together before the next meeting and try to move this a little bit further along than what we have right now. But it was just a preliminary meeting just to gather information, get any other requests that were out there for additional information. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Thank you, sir. What I was thinking we would do today, folks, is if there's any questions for any of the work groups or comments that you'd like as a committee of the whole to share today, be sure to do that after each of our groups get a little bit of a debriefing. Any questions for Richard and his work group or comment? Once we start getting the data back and the recommendations back is when the robust conversation will more than likely occur. Those of us that have been here before know that we kind of start with the work group a lot of times and then dive deeper into that. Ms. Burks, would you please make sure that our record shows that Mr. Buckholtz has joined us for our meeting today? Tex, we appreciate you joining us, sir. Any questions for Richard? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to charge 2, which is the study and make recommendations for the appropriate funding levels for the operations support and space support formulas for the state colleges. Mary Wicklund, Mary, you're heading that work group. Any updates for us today?
Sure. We did have a Teams meeting on September the 16th. It went very well. A lot of comments and suggestions were made. We kind of are taking the same path as charge 1, where we're asking for further data that Marie has been gathering and sending to us to do further discussions so we can make some recommendations, based on, growth and inflation. And also I did a little PowerPoint presentation about the correlating reduction of tuition and fees for the state colleges because of the additional funding from the prior bienniums. And so I think that was helpful. It kind of drew a picture for them. So we're basing the next discussions on that and where we're headed with the state colleges. So it went very well. So hopefully next time we'll have more information.
Great, we appreciate that. Any questions, any information? On that note, as Mary pointed out, it's important that if you have data needs that you reach out to Marie and just simply ask the coordinating board for supplemental data, and they're very willing, of course, to provide that for us. I think as we meet into that next meeting, it's going to be essential that you make sure they know about the work group meetings round 2 so that they're able to participate in those. And for sure that we make sure that we all get data requests to them as soon as we are made aware that we need some further information. So great. Any questions on charge 2 or any comments? All right, moving on to charge 3. Charge 3 is to study and make recommendations for the appropriate funding level 4 and the refinement of the Texas State Technical College System's return value funding formula. That's out of the General Appropriations Act of Senate Bill 81 out of the 87th. Special revisions relating only to components of TSTC, Section 11, page 111 through 231 to be specific. I don't know, did Jonathan join us or is he absent today? Do we have Jonathan with us? I think he was not able to join.
He was not. I do see someone's dialed in that potentially could be him, but I was present at the meeting
Okay,
for
perfect.
charge 3. So there was an introductory meeting and all the members of the work group were able to attend. And Mr. Hoekstra gave a presentation that was a little more in depth on the return value funding model. There were some great questions from the group. And from there, the group has been anxiously awaiting the projections that were just recently provided that they're going to use to structure for their next meeting.
And I know that I think it's Tex, Terry, and Mary, you're all on that work group too. Anything you would want to add, we're open to hearing that or any comments. I think it's always valuable for those of us in the community college systems to hear about that formula and learn from our colleagues of that return value. It's pretty awesome to learn how that's working so well for TSTC and their excitement about that. Any other comments around that?
It was a fascinating learning experience, and I'm excited to hear more. Once some more information comes out, I think it gives me further ideas that may be dangerous.
We appreciate that. Good though. Terry, yes, ma'am.
I would say one thing that was very interesting to me that I did not know before is that because their data is calculated 5 years out from graduation, they have such a huge lag time. And it sounded to me like that was something they needed to kind of figure out, Marie, if I'm saying that correctly. But that seemed to kind of be a sticky point for TSTC, is just that 5-year lag in time. So that was fascinating to me.
So, for example, if they right now had affected numbers from pandemic and placement, they technically wouldn't feel that hit for 4 or 5 years out from now.
Correct.
Oh, that is interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that should be, maybe we will hear some ideas then from the work group about how to maybe look into that further as we move forward. That's a long time out, isn't it? Okay, good. Any other comments from any of the work group members as we go along? I know your work group leaders will not mind you chiming in at all. So anybody that has any questions along the way, please let us know. All right. Charge 4 is to institute a formal process for the committee to recommend critical fields for inclusion or removal for success points based on the best available data and trends about regional and state workforce needs. Then using this formula methodology and the most recently available data, they were to develop recommendation for 2 sets of fields to the coordinating board. 1 set of fields recommended for additional to the critical fields list, and then 1 set recommended for removal from that critical fields list, which is a part of also, of course, Senate Bill 1 and Public Junior College Rider 24. Dr. Rodriguez called me this afternoon and said that he was not going to be able to make it. He is currently in the air, which we understand, but I do understand that that group met and that they are seeking further data. From what he left a message for me, what he was telling me was that they are working on developing really a stronger look at the data about the regional piece, that there's a lot of state data, but they also want to make sure that they're diving into that regional information. I know some of you, I think maybe Jim, are you on that one as well, sir? Or is that a different work group? I'm trying to remember who's on that group. Richard is, and Jim, yes. So, and I wasn't able to make that particular work group, but any comments from the group on that.
I don't remember making the group. I do remember talking about some of that.
I may have misunderstood his message. It may be that that's the first meeting's intent is to start diving into that data.
Right.
Marie, did he meet? Are you aware of?
To my knowledge, no, he did not meet. And I
Okay.
spoke to him last week. He was still in the
Gotcha.
initial stages of planning that meeting.
So we will have that meeting quickly. I know he will want to do that. I think there's a lot of conversation to be had around critical fields, folks. The regional piece is for me personally, is the greatest concern, how we meet regional demand, how we garner ways in which that critical list is more meaningful at the local level. And I think nobody argues the importance of that. So I look forward for that work group and our next larger meeting to maybe have some things to look at and data to express some of our thoughts there. Jim, do you have another comment, sir?
Yes, sir. I
Yeah.
did, Jim Yiannopoulos. One of the things, and of course, I work closely with the Workforce Commission for lots of obvious reasons, especially Fort Hood. And you read 1,000 soldiers a month coming out of Fort Hood, coming back into civilian population. We're doing lots of training here. And one of the things workforce that we have been able to accomplish with the Workforce Commission is to overcome the regionalization of training has to happen in that region. And therefore, the funding for those jobs has to fit into that region. Well, I don't have any shipbuilders here. I don't have any welders, that kind of welding. I do welding for farming and ranching. So one of the things we were able to do is to convince the Workforce Commission. They totally agreed. It makes sense that why should soldiers leave here to go to your institution to learn how to put together a computer chip when they could do it right here? Then they could go to your area and get jobs. So there was a lot of that going on. At the same time, why would an individual in your area need to come here to get training to get the workforce dollars to become a welder on a ranch or farm? I just use that as a very crude example, but they agreed. And so they've really said, you know what, anybody who is trained in any of our areas throughout the state can then move to any place in the state for that job. And so as a consequence, the one we're doing currently, which is it gives you an idea of how large this could be. It's with Ford Motor Company, and Ford Motor Company has given us their curriculum that they want to use to train technician level 2s. And they have given us the automobiles. They've come down and they have evaluated our facilities, and our instructors had to go to Ford for, I think it was 3 or 4 weeks to get trained to be an instructor for them. They monitor the program. And then what happens is, as these soldiers come out or civilians show up here, it could be anybody, goes through that program. It's 40 hours a week for a total of 16 weeks. And as a result of that, the TWC pays the tuition and they buy the $4,000 toolkit. And then that person, when they leave, they go to work at a Ford dealership somewhere in the state of Texas, so that they don't all have to be here. So what that does, that opens a door for all of these critical fields, in my estimation, to be regionalized to where you all can train people to go anywhere in the state from your particular region. And we don't have to shuffle students around to get the training in that region to be employed in that region. So I just say that as a caveat to what we might look at when we get into these critical fields, when we talk about eliminating them or removing some and adding some.
Yeah.
That's all.
Mr. Garcia, Vice Chair Garcia. I think you're muted, sir. I think you're still muted.
So I think we're talking about along the lines of portability of those skill sets, right? I mean, so essentially you can train them, and those skill sets can easily transfer to anything or any one place throughout the state itself. And so I'm now interested into, whether or not it makes sense as to how much you weigh into the portability of those skill sets. And some of those skill sets may not be portable and others would. And would you weigh in, say, for at a performance measure at a higher rate for those skills that are more portable
than others. I'm just curious. I'm just throwing it out there, you know, just food for thought, more anything else.
Well, and we worked those, I was not on the subgroup for critical fields last session that we worked toward, and some of you were, I think. You know, we also had a large conversation. Terry, I think maybe you were a part of that one. There was a big conversation at one point, folks, about this notion of targeted versus critical and how we were able to remove those things. And there was a lot of work on that. I think it had to do with, you know, largest growth opportunity seemed like was in there. There was another category of fastest growth opportunities, and then just the ease of those coming on and off of those fields was discussed then. So it sounds like we're still kind of trying to tackle that piece. It doesn't sound like we've yet solved that notion, and so that's good to hear, because I think that's still something that we need to look at again. And so I appreciate the input here for all of us. Anyone else on concerns or questions or thoughts about that? Terry, was that a hand up, or that was a?
No, I was on that metrics task on that last time. And
Right.
yes, we did talk about them moving away from critical fields to targeted fields, and really looking at data in the state of Texas, because I think out of one of the legislative sessions, they had targeted some what they called critical fields that was looking only at starting salaries. But I know like one of them was a nuclear something, and I think that's just not, there just weren't jobs available in Texas. So we had talked about it's got to make sense. It's not just the starting salary and what's a targeted field, what's business and industry need, but also is that job available in Texas?
Well, Terry, you've talked about this before, about the transfer pathway conversation around that, where these become stackable. They're, you know, and the importance of that critical field leading to a stackable pathway that then leads on even to, in this case, could lead on even to baccalaureate. But I think that's another nuance that you've mentioned before that we need to keep in mind as well. And that kind of fits in with what Jim's talking about, I think, in that sense.
Yeah, I just didn't want to have limits. You know, when the state tries to put limits on what we do with critical fields, or the elimination of those fields, or where we're doing the training for those critical fields, my whole position was, don't limit us. You know, use us as they would with TSTC, for example. I mean, you know.
Well, and those fields change so abruptly that sometimes we legislatively can't get them changed before the next time it's a different new nuance of it. That's something we run into. I can remember years past where nursing fell off the list for our region, and we went, well, wait a minute. And we're able to work with TSTC to get it back on, but it was kind of like, no, that's not what we're experiencing. And so it just took a lag time. Yeah.
Farm and Ranch fell off of ours, and we're right in the middle of it.
Yeah.
I said, seriously? And so the coordinating board wanted us to eliminate those programs. Anyway.
Yeah, sure.
I've said enough. I'll leave it at that.
It's all right. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So charge 4 is something I know that we spent a lot of time, and sounds like we're going to spend a lot of time on as well this time, because it is so important to our local needs for each of us serving communities. And it's also, I think there's a lot of value in looking too at how TSTC's model has worked in response to that too, and sharing best practices on that side as well, perhaps. So thank you. Any other on that? All right. Charge 5 is to study and make recommendations on the inclusion of qualified non-credit working continuing education courses, post-secondary industry certifications, and other workforce credentials in a student success point measures, implications to the existing formula methodology, and as needed, recommendations on any associated data and reporting, course requirements, or funding levels. This was talked about again last time as well, the notion of non-credit or adult continuing ed courses that lead or are able to be somehow funded. And so that is something is very current. Dr. Maldonado is not able to be with us today because he had a board meeting at the same time. And so he asked that I inform the committee that the work group has not met yet, but has a scheduled plan to meet. And that meeting's on the calendar, but would welcome any input, of course, from this group to take to that. I believe that I know he's going to reach out if he hasn't already to Marie to make sure she's able to be in that meeting as well when that's finalized. But anything that the committee would want us to pass on to Dr. Maldonado, please let us know. I think this is an important piece. I think this is a piece that we've all kind of dealt with in one way or another. But any other input from the group on what you might say is qualifying non-credit kind of courses in the past? Any comments? So by next meeting, we'll have they will have met and we'll have some information from that work group. I think that Dr. Maldonado is planning, if has not already, reaching out to each of you on the work group. He may have already done that, and I'm trying to pull up here who's on that group real quickly and just let's see here.
So Brenda,
Terry, I think you're there. Do we have that scheduled yet?
I haven't seen the schedule. She sent Monique sent a doodle poll.
Okay, good.
I think they had tried to schedule something for Monday. I know I wouldn't have been able to attend Monday, and I don't know if others said the same thing. So then a doodle poll came out. So
okay, so for sure in the next couple of weeks, I would assume y'all are able to get together and meet, and that'll be great. And I think that's Terry's on there, but I think Raul, you're on there. Jonathan, Roberto, and Mary are all on that one, so that'll be great. So, yes,
so
Terry.
I think one thing that would be helpful, and I don't know, maybe you all know this already, but what are the rules around CTE and what qualifies for state funding and what does not? I would love to see that before even the committee meeting. I think that would be very helpful in kind of forming that conversation. Like I said, I may be the only one who doesn't know that. And so if it's repeat for the rest of you, my apologies, but it would be helpful.
I don't think it would hurt at all to review that, because the Wicklund piece and what actually falls under the inventory there that is qualified for funding, there's two different sets of criteria for that, and it gets cumbersome if you haven't been in it a while. To refresh our memories would not hurt, sure. And I think Marie can help with that. Did you want to make a comment to that, Marie?
Sure. So just for clarification, you're wanting essentially for me to lay out the rules related to workforce continuing education, what is fundable, and sort of the universe of fundable courses within that. Okay. And where the lines are drawn. Okay.
Yeah, that's the question, because some of our continuing education does qualify for funding, some of it does not. And I don't know the rules around what makes it qualify, what would exclude it.
Right.
Terry, do you think, I mean, this is kind of random, and I know it doesn't have anything specifically to do with fundability from a state perspective, but I do think we need to keep in mind too the federal financial aid capabilities of some of these versus not. So there are a lot of even career technical programs because of hours that don't meet if they're not where they need to be and do. And I don't know if those conversations go together, but I don't think they're totally separate, because I think that that's something that's important. The fundable piece on the state side also sometimes is not or is reflected with federal financial aid availability based on just contact hours, if nothing else. It is sometimes a problem. So I don't think that hurt for all of us, maybe, Marie, to get that piece when you email it. I wouldn't mind seeing that myself, because again, I haven't reviewed that in a while. So perfect. Good point. Other comments on charge 5? I do think I don't think anyone would disagree that we need to try to find some flexibility, and you all disagree with me if you'd like. We've got to find a mechanism, in my opinion, that works for this, because there are some programs, and there's some programs that even age is an issue, and then certain health science programs where if you're trying to do an early college or an early enrollment or dual credit that doesn't fund because of the nature of the age of the person and whether they really can have continuing ed under that age, if it's a CNA, I'm making something up here, but you know, what I'm saying is, that's something we really need to look at, I think, because there are certain programs that post high school, once they're graduating, they're prepared to go into that haven't been fundable in the past, or we thought they were and they ended up not being. So I think there is some real hard looks at those lists again. So Marie, did you have a comment there?
No, I agree. There's a lot of nuance. And so we need those details clarified for the group.
Perfect. All right. So our next agenda item, Jim, you asked me early on how long this meeting might take. Apparently not as lengthy as it could be, but our next item is planning for subsequent meetings. You should have received already from Ms. Burks the different invites for your calendars, but we are planning our next meeting for Wednesday, October 27th. Putting just a bit of pressure on folks. We really need work groups to have met and to come back with a bit of tangible discussion items, because we idyllically finish this work in December. And if you're like me, my calendar, I look and go, that's going to be here before I'm ready for it. And so we need to get October, November need to be hardworking, really beginning to get some things on paper, beginning to look at these. Idyllically, we don't have to meet in January. It's there, but that's not normal to have to do that. So idyllically, we get our work done in the December meeting. But those dates are the 27th of October, November 17, December 8, and January 5th. And again, you should have received those, but for public information, at this point, those are scheduled for October 27, November 17, December 8, and January 5th, all at 2:00 p.m. So please let us know if something comes up and you're unable to attend ahead of time. Please let Marie know, and that helps us plan to make sure we have or we're prepared. The final agenda item is our adjournment, but I would first say, is there any further questions or discussion, anything that anyone needs? Again, thank you very, very much, Marie, for your quick response when we have questions and we have data requests. Emily, everyone, thank you for that. That's what helps us, and you all are doing a great job of getting us what we need in really timely manner. So we appreciate that. If I hear no further questions or anything, I will, I suppose, take a motion to adjourn.
This is Jim Yiannopoulos. I'll make a motion.
Okay, I have a first from Jim and I have a second from Tex. Any further discussion or anything else? Otherwise, all in favor can kind of wave and say, will be a longer meeting next time with lots of discussion. We stand adjourned. It is 2:30. The Community College and Technical College Formula Advisory Committee is adjourned until October 27th, 2021 at 2:00 p.m. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Brent.
Everyone.